All right, just hit record. So we're recording the class. Yeah, so I'm gonna, so at this moment, so we're gonna focus on the annotated bibliography, and that's your last that's your last assignment for the semester. We're gonna work on that today. We're gonna work specifically, I'm gonna start annotated bibliography like it is the beginning, right? So that that we took over the handout, and then I'll upload all the folders in Blackboard for the annotated, and then you'll have what you need. But I've battled over the last couple of days because to figure out there's to talk a little bit about the research. So I think I'm gonna speak. I want us to focus more on being able to do the annotated bibliography, which is going to be two things, has two components that are different. One is simply formatting, and that sometimes is going to be a little tricky, and I think some of us shared that last time in terms of doing them. And the other thing is really the sense of summary, and so to be able to summarize. And so I think what we will do today is we will spend some time workshopping summaries. I graded a group of summaries, I think, for how to get our mind to read. And some of you did wonderfully with it. Maybe let me make sure that I'm remembering. I've been in a grading mode, but I think it was how to get our minds to read. No, let's see. It was that, or it was, let me just get the right thing, because so I know what I'm talking about. I'm just going to Blackboard right now, just to see.
It was to how to get our minds to read.
It was that. Okay, cool. Thank you. So I did that, and some of you were on point, and some of you did not do so well on that with it. And the difference was the idea of focusing on the article for summary. And so for me, that led me to want to spend some time today for us to be able to do a little bit of writing, do a little bit of summary today, and do a little bit of workshopping today, so that we can do that. So so the next assignment is going to be the annotated bibliography. That's not going to be due until a week from Thursday, so December 2nd. That will be, when you do that, you're going to have to submit it through Turnitin. I'm going to show you how to do Turnitin if you have not used Turnitin before. But actually, I just changed my mind, because I think that, well, we'll see. But I'll teach you how to turn it in anyway, because some of you may use it for another class. And we'll work on summary, because I think it's important, it's important to make sure that I think for me, for you to leave this class being able to have a good handle on summary. And let me see, is someone, yes. There's someone who is, one of your classmates has consistently done good summaries. So let me talk about the annotated bibliography. Then I want to ask you some questions about summary. Then I want us to do some summarizing, and then we'll do some workshopping. So those are my goals for today. Okay. So let me go back to, so let me share my screen. And let me make sure this is on speaker. Yeah. Okay. Speaker, share screen. Okay, I'm going to make this a little smaller. All right. So this is the handout on annotated bibliographies, and I think we began talking about this, right? So a bibliography is usually a list of sources that you would use for a paper. So you're not writing a research paper in this class. You may write one when you go to 111, right? That's one of the things that is offered in English 111, and for people to write a research paper, right? So that involves the research, writing a paper, an essay, all that kind of stuff. In this class, we're not going to do that. We're going to get a sense of organizing the bibliography, or in research paper would maybe called the works cited page, but here is going to be the bibliography. And then And then an annotated bibliography, an annotation is a summary, right? Or an evaluation, right? But of the text. So if you were doing a paper, right? And the paper, you were using, 8 articles for your paper or 10 articles for your paper. What you would do with that paper is that you would list those 10 sources, the books, the magazines, articles, the essays, the news reports, the whatever the sources are. And those 10, you would list them all, right? So that we, in a particular way and in a particular format with particular information, right? So that we would know anybody who was reading your paper would be able to go and find these sources. So they would include things like the author's name, the title of the article, the journal from which it comes from, or the magazine it comes from, or the newspaper it comes from. It would include information on date and publication, and etc. Right? So there's an order to all of that. So that's what an annotated bibliography is. It's going to be a listing of sources, and then each source will have a paragraph, right? So here, summarizing, right? Some annotations are merely a summary of the source. That means you're just going to be summarizing the article, like, and of course, in summary, right, is what are the main arguments? What is the point of this, of the book or the article? What are the topics covered? Like a summary, so that when you read that one paragraph, you're going to get a good sense of what that article talks about it, right? Assessment, right, and this is what I want, a distinction, right, is you deciding whether it's a usual source, you deciding how it compares, you in some cases, commenting on it, right? This is reflecting, is how does it fit into your research, you doing that. I want us to focus more on summary for our annotation, right? For us to be able to summarize the article, partly it's because we're not writing the paper. If you were writing the paper, then you would be investing more in the position, condition, and value of that source as it relates to the whole paper. For example, I'm going to come back into the classroom, so we're not just looking at a screen. For example, like if you were writing a paper and you were using a source and you were only using like one sentence from this one article and or one little paragraph, then you would you probably wouldn't use that as, there wouldn't be as much of an investment. But if you were using another article for your very same research paper and we're using more points of it, more things, then that might have a bigger value to your paper. So you might write that in your annotation. But since we're not writing the paper, it's kind of, we'll have an idea of a fiction, of a thesis, but it's but you're not writing the paper. So I want us to focus on summary. Okay. All right, let me go back to sharing my screen. So the second part of the bibliography is format, right? So so generally the bibliographic information has the source, the title. This is the things that I talked about. You're going to write in MLA or APA format. In this case, we're using MLA. And the annotations for each source are written in paragraph form. So the length of the annotations can vary from a couple of sentences to a couple of pages. But in this case, I'm going to give you the guideline, right? And I'm saying it should be 5 to 7 sentences. Here's a 6, but 5 to 7, that's right in the middle. Why should you write a bibliography? Because, not because it's your assignment for the class, but when you're doing research with lots of, using lots of sources, sometimes doing a bibliography helps you organize them, right? Helps you organize the information, helps you determine, when you're doing research, sometimes research doesn't happen like in a day or over a weekend. Sometimes research is happening over months, right? And so what you remember from the very first article, if you started doing research in September to now in November looking at something, you might say, what was that article about? So annotations help us remember and fill in the gaps so we can go back and read them. So general MLA format, we know this already because this is the format of your papers, right? Type your paper, right? 8.5 by 11 paper, but in this case, that's what these are. You double space your paper, you use 12-point font, you leave 1 space after the period, you set the margins of your document to 1 inch, you indent the first lines of the paragraph, 1 inch from the left margin, and MLA that's use the tab key as opposed to pushing the space bar 5 times. Create a header that numbers all the pages consecutively in the upper right-hand corner. and use italics for your essays for titles of longer works, and only when absolutely necessary providing emphasis, right? But usually italics for that and quotes for the smaller works. I know I went through that quickly. Those are just some of that. We're going to look at examples, etc. So that is what you're going to do. So now I'm going to show you the assignment, which is what you, in any case, it would be more like just a thesis, but you'll have more, our assignment's a little more directed. Okay, so let me stop sharing and pull it up. Oh, let me see this. Let's see, it's here. Yes, the assignment. So the assignment is actually growing out of the readings and the work that we've done this semester, which is what we're going to do today in terms of as an exercise together, as a writing exercise and a workshopping exercise. So I think to share screen. All right, so here's the assignment, right? The topic, right? So if you were writing the paper, you'd be writing this paper, but you're not. You're really just doing the annotated bibliography. Like self-determination and combating negative portrayals of people of color, immigrants, and queer people. That's the topic, right? Self-determination, right? We talked about self-determination, like you're saying who you are, not have somebody else defining you for who you are, and combating negative portrayals of people of color. I could change this to BIPOC because people use that, but people still use people of color, immigrants and queer people, right? So the explanation. This semester, we read essays and speeches, White Rage by Carol Anderson, A Talk to Teachers by James Baldwin, and Ain't I a Woman by Sojourner Truth. They all spoke of some of the ways in which American society views and devalues Black lives, right? These 3 articles we read, we talked about them, you've written papers about them, right? The essay, Latina Visibility and the Legacy of Power of Love by Charles Rice-Gonzalez, and the Washington Post article, The News Media Usually show immigrants as dangerous criminals, That's Changed for Now at Least by Emily Harris and Heather Silver Muhammad, add to the conversation of how other groups are seen in America. Explain what the negative points of view are, sorry, that's messed up. Explain what the negative points of view are of this collection of articles that is sharing about different populations in America and how those views are being contradicted or changed. Let me fix that for you. So your instructions, your annotated bibliography should include these 5 sources, right? These 5 articles. In another aspect, I would have you research and find another one. If anybody wants to take that on, I won't stop you. But right now, the assignment is going to be to take these 5 articles, right? Each do a summary or annotation that must be 5 to 7 sentences. Your paper should be in MLA format. Your assignment is due by 11:59 on Thursday, December 2nd, uploaded to Turnitin on Blackboard. Right? So in this instruction, all of this, you'll have this, and in the future, if you want to write a paper, you can write a paper. You've got the articles, probably can do some more research, and you've got the beginnings of creating a thesis statement and all this kind of stuff with it here. But really, I want to focus on the topic. On doing an annotation. So we have 5 articles. 3 of them you have, right? 2 you will get in your folder for the annotated bibliography. You will get this instruction. You will get a copy of the handout will be in there and a sample. So I'm going to come back into the class. And I want to talk a little bit about, about summary. So I want to go back to, I'm not going to just share screen right now. I'm just going to our class. and course content. Now, also, also include the how to summarize an article, right? So it just takes a minute to open up. So I'm going to share again. So in your in Blackboard, there is, let me just take a look at that. Okay. All right, now you're just all being very nice citizens and saying hello to each other, and I love that. It's great. So I just want to remind us of this handout, right? That we went over. We went out, I think, when we did the salvation summary, which is the one I'm in the midst of grading and sending to people. And I'm seeing a little bit of that as well. Of some of the responses to salvation I saw were people talking about the idea of salvation or talking about other things other than talking about the essay or the kind of narrative essay that Langston Hughes was giving us, which is really about the experience of a young boy and his encounter with religion and his idea of questioning faith, right? And something that there's more that happens into it, but at the end of it, you remember he's crying, and people think he's crying for one reason, but he shares that he's crying for another reason. He thinks he's, was told of a particular religious experience that he was wanting to have and didn't have it, and saw someone fake it and not get punished for it, but actually praised for faking it. So, so the idea of summarizing an article or an essay, thinking of the main elements here. I'm just going to make this a little bigger, just refreshing our minds, right? Like, what are the main elements in a summary, right? The main idea of this article is conveyed clearly and concisely. The summary is written in a unique style, right? In your own words. It's shorter than the original document, right? So if the document is, 10 pages, your summary should not be 10 pages. Your summary could be, a paragraph. It could be a page. Maybe you need a page, but it should not be 10 pages, right? It should be shorter. It should explain the important notions and the arguments, like the ideas that the paper is making. And it condenses a lot of information into a small space, right? 5 sentences, yeah. So for your annotated bibliography, the minimum is going to be 5 sentences and the max should be 7, right? I'm trying to give you that. So simple steps to summarize: read the source material, right? So it's basically you're writing a summary of the article, of the essay, of the material. You're not necessarily making a comment on it. Kind of, yes, Samantha. So say more. You're saying the who, what, when, where, how, and why. Say more. You can unmute. Let me stop sharing for a second. Yeah, so yeah, we could do that too, Samantha. Do you want to unmute and say something, or you can type somewhere in the chat, or anyone else? Like when we talk of summary, I guess maybe my question is that people understand. Yes, Samantha's using the word outlining. Excellent. Yeah, in terms of outlining it, is being able to identify the main ideas, right? The main point. Very often you can find that in the very first paragraph, but it doesn't begin and end there, right? Because if you think of an introduction, like when you write essays, right, you write an introduction. In the introduction, you talk about what the article is, you talk about who wrote it, you give us a 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 sentence synopsis of it, and you include a thesis statement. A thesis statement is about what is this article going to be about. And so very often in the beginning of an article, of an essay, of a work, it kind of states what this will be about. Now, as the author continues writing and discussing more things come out, right? More points come out. There are points that support that main point, right? There may be points that may be contradicted and then they get rebutted, but the person is making an argument, right? Or they're crafting a story, right? They're crafting a narrative. So let me see, I think Samantha wrote some more in the chat. Correct, right? Exactly, is not ongoing. I mean, another way to think about that is it is concise, right? You could read these 5 sentences or these 7 sentences and you say, I know what this story is about. I've got a good idea of what this whole thing is about. So, so what I want us to do, so before we dive into it, I want you to be able to identify that handout and see if you can, so if you need it, you have it. I'm going to put it in the chat as well. No, I don't know if I can put a PDF in the chat, but I'll figure out how to get it to you all. Oh, it's on Blackboard. I could do an announcement and send it as well, but just so you have it as a resource. Because what I would like us to do is in the assignment, there are 3 of the articles we've already read and that you've talked about, and you've read and you've talked about. So I want us to take a moment and to do a summary of one of them today, right? So we'll do that. And so I want us to do that with Sojourner Truth's Ain't I a Woman? So I want us to go to that art, go to this essay. Let me find it here. Right. I'm sorry, I thought I was sharing my screen. Right. This is her essay. It's just 1 page, right? Ain't I a Woman by Sojourner Truth. And this is going to be one of the sources that you have to do a summary for your annotation. So I want us to take some time and write a summary of this, and then we will work on it together, work on the summaries together. Oh, got kicked out. Okay. So let me just, oh, I know what I'm going to do. Hold 1 second. Does anybody have questions that we're going to do a summary together today? Victor sharing in the chat, finding the main idea of any reading is certainly very difficult, but with practice, this will become easier. Ask yourself, what does the author want us to know? What are they're trying to inform us about? Then look for repeating common ideas. If your article is talking about systemic oppression in the US, then what about the systemic oppression, right? Remember to always carefully read the first and last sentences, because authors will usually identify the main idea of a paragraph in the first sentence, right? Of a paragraph in the first sentence, and restate that idea in the last sentence, right? And use this website for more tips. Here's a website that Victor's offering.
And if I may, in the past, I've used this website and a few examples they have, because they have an example of a small passage, and then they ask you what is the main idea. So and it's already all answered here. So students, you don't need to go through the assignment and do the exercise. But if you're ever having trouble finding common ideas or anything like that, or thinking to yourself, what is a common idea or what is a repeating idea? This little slideshow, document, sorry, gives some examples of what a common idea may look like.
I just clicked it.
Yeah.
Everyone, just to show you it. Okay. So this is it clicked here, right? And it gives you some information as another resource as well. Here's Victor's offering, right? Find the topic, right? And gave you a tip, building, when you write your essay, that's where you're writing an intro and you write a conclusion. The conclusion kind of sums up, some of the main points of what you discussed. You pulled out things from your thesis statement and you talk about that in your conclusion. And so if you are reading an article, just be mindful of those 2 areas to get information. And then, and yeah, these are good tips. So you can take out these tips here as you're writing.
Another tip, if I may, after you, all of you are done reading an article, talk to a friend about it. Maybe somebody who isn't in the class or somebody who is the class, doesn't really matter, but talk to them about it and have them ask you questions like, what was the main idea or whatever. And then in your best way, just kind of speak it out. I know it sounds very weird, but usually having a conversation with a friend, especially a friend who's curious, allows us to kind of digest the information a little easier, or like by going through the process of speaking about it?
So Josh was expressing his appreciation, which is beautiful. All right, so what we're gonna do, does everybody have access to Ain't I Woman, or I'm going to do something. I think I'm sure I can find it in a link and I could put it into the chat. If you have access to the here we go. I'm going to find two different ones. So I'm going to put in the chat. There's one. Here's one other one, just in case your computer doesn't open up a PDF, an online PDF. So you should be able to access the thing through Blackboard, but in case you don't have it handy, you can't get onto your computer, you're working off your phone or something, I'm giving you these two links to Ain't I Woman. And then I'm going to ask you, we're going to spend, what is it, 110? Let's spend like, let's spend 15 minutes on it, and then we'll come together and see how far we've gotten. Okay, so right now, either on your computer, if you've got a pen and paper, if you're, using, some other device, your phone, if you could type out, like, if you could read this and then think of what we just talked about. What are the main ideas? What does the author want you to know? Samantha offering the who, what, when, where, and why, like kind of those main ideas about the concept about being concise and not going on and on, being really focused and saying, here are the points. And if you can think of a little bit of guidance for this one, at least, if you can think of like 3 ideas or 3 points that you want to bring out from the article, there's more, but if you want to think of 3 points, and you want to think of a main point and 2 points supporting those main points. So let's take, I know I've talked for another minute now. So let's go to like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go for 15 minutes. I'll check in if people need a little more time, say, give me more time, professor, but let's do that. And while you're doing that, I'm going to upload these documents to Blackboard so that you'll have them. Okay. What do you mean? What was it, Samantha? Oh, yes. So the links that I put in the chat are just the transcript for Ain't I Woman. So in case that you have it in your Blackboard in the course content, right? But in case you don't have access to it, I gave you 2 other ways to access the text, right? Which is the text that begins, well, children, when she begins speaking. So I want you to read that text, right? And for now, I want you to begin working on a summary. So let's go to, well, it's almost, if we say 127, let's go to 130. At 130, we'll come back and I'll check in with you all and see how far you've gotten. And then what we'll do is we will, depending on how much we've written, maybe we can give a little more time if we need it. If not, then I'm going to put Victor and a couple of you into one group, and then the rest of you will work with me. We are, there's 16 of you. All right, so maybe I can put 4 are with Victor and 8 will stay with me, and we'll look at summary. And some of the things that we can do is something that Victor talked about, that maybe when we're in our groups, we can also read them out and see how they sound. Okay, so we'll be back at 1:30, and so just using whatever you have at your disposal to do some writing. And so write the, do a summary of Ain't I a Woman? Okay, any other questions? Okay, so if there's no other questions, let's write, do a summary, work on a summary until 1:30, and then when we come back, depending on how far we've gotten, we'll break up in groups, and Victor will work with some, and I will work with the rest of the class. Okay, I'll see you all at 1:30.
Good luck, everybody.
did it go for folks? For Adrian, Akila, Anthony, David, Delon, Joshua, Logan, Miguel, Nahum, Samantha, Umu, Lang. Anybody? How did it go? Samantha, okay. I see the eyes. What does that mean? Did it? Well, let's I think let's begin with a discussion. I think it went okay. All right. Let's begin with a discussion, either in the chat or you can speak out verbally. Did folks find it okay, or did you feel like, Samantha said it was okay? Did anybody find it challenging? Do you feel like, oh, I didn't really know where to begin, or I need 5 more minutes? Okay. Anyone? How did it go? Okay, I never know where to begin. Okay. Cool. So let me tell you what I want to do, but I want to make sure this is going to be useful. So I was thinking of putting Victor in a group with about 4 people. I think we're still at 16, right? And then the remainder would stay with me. And what I would like to do is for us to at least to talk about, to share what you wrote, how far you got. To David is a great question to say, how do you get started? That you're finding it difficult to as a place to where to start. Joshua, Lela, for me, it was okay, but I know it's not especially, so I find it difficult for me to put it together. Okay. So let's try that. Let's try this. Let's try this and see how it goes. All right, Victor, you game?
I'm here. I'm ready.
Okay, so I'm gonna put just like 4 people in a group with Victor, and what I would like you to do with him is that, and so why don't we just say that, since David was having questions about where to begin, and Samantha felt okay, I'll put both of them, and then we'll put 2 more people in there with you, and then and the rest of you will stay with me, and we'll let's see, assign manually. Okay. Let's put this here. Let's say okay, I'm going to put 4 of you can go into a room, and oh wait, I have to put Victor in the room. Okay, and who's here? All right. So so Joshua, could you share what you wrote, how far you got? You could either read it, or let's see, how can you get it to me? I think it might be too much to put in the chat. But maybe if you can copy and paste it and put in the chat, or if you want to read it out loud, we can do that too. Right? That invitation is for Joshua, but for anybody. For Belang, for Gumu, Jean, Rayleni, Logan, Julissa, Anthony, Ilea, Nahom, Akila, any of you want to either put it in the chat or just read it out loud so we can hear it. Or if you have questions, just ask, David is in the other room. Oops. David is in the other room, but if David wants, but if David had the question he posed, but he never knows where to begin. So is that something that other people feel a place where they kind of stumble or get stuck at, or yeah, and the reason why I'm taking time to do this is because your final assignment is all about summary, and this is one of the articles that you need to summarize, one of the pieces you need to summarize. So in a way, you get a head start by doing your first summary together in class today, and being able to navigate it. Or unless this group feels like they're good, you don't need the help, then it's fine. We can move on to something else. But just like let me know one way or another, either in the chat or unmute and say, I'm good, professor, I understand it. We can move on, or I'm having trouble, I don't understand it. Relani says that they're good. Okay. Is that a general sense with folks? That people, is everybody on the same page with Relani? They're good. I was stuck at first, but I figured it out, so I'm okay. Okay. All right, good. Sometimes just doing it together. So I got 2 goods. Elena, quick question. What if I summarize, but that's not what you're looking for? Do you want to share it with me? I mean, you could also email it to me, or let's see. I know what I could do. Hold 1 second. Oh. All right, so I'm going to put a link in the chat, right? And this link is to a Google Doc. So you should be able to click, anybody in the class should be able to click the link. And then, so one of the things you could do, Aaliyah, is you can click the link, you can copy and paste and put yours in there, and I could take a look at it now, and I can let you and us know if we're on the right track, if you're cool with that. Okay, let me just. Right, and the same for anybody. You can put your, you can copy and paste in the chat. Just put your name so I know who I'm talking to. Say, Aaliyah, and then type your thing in there. And if anybody else wants to do it, Umu, Balang, Giancarlo, Miguel, Logan, Julissa, Anthony, any of you can do that. And let me let's wait 1 second here.
Professor, I have a question.
Yes.
I mean, I basically understood the article.
Mhm.
I summarized the article basically in my head, like I said last time, like that I think is like about women's rights,
Uh-huh.
that they feel like they don't take them as men, as important as men. They felt that they didn't feel as important as men back in that in time, you know. But
Mhm.
but there is, for me, it's sometimes it's hard to understand
Uh-huh.
uh, the meaning of some words. For
Mhm.
example, when she said, "If my cup won't hold but a pint, and yours holds a quart, wouldn't you be mean not to let me have a little half measure full?" So some of those words for me are hard to understand the meaning.
Yeah.
Um,
So
what is yes?
I'm gonna go to 1 second. I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna go into this.
What we have read.
Excuse me,
Hello,
Victor.
Professor.
Hi. So I'm just gonna I guess maybe I don't know if you can see it in the chat. Can you see the classes chat?
No, I only see our chat. Sorry.
Your group chat? If I do,
Yeah.
if I paste something in this chat now, do you see something?
Yes, I do now.
Okay, so that's just a Google Doc that I created that we're going to begin using in the other class and with the rest of the students. So in
Mhm,
case anybody wants to copy and paste it, that everybody should have access to it.
mhm.
And that way you can kind of, we're having a little challenge with people letting me see what it was, and they were going to put it in the chat, and they were going to try to email it to me. I
Yeah,
figured a way we could do it live is with this Google Doc, so everybody has
that's
access to it.
excellent.
So I wanted to give you that as a tool in case you wanted to use it. But I just tell them put their name and then put their summary, and then we're going to be able to talk about it. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's very helpful because I was going to do the same thing. I actually just asked Samantha if she wanted to email me or post it in the chat that I was just going to put it on a doc anyways. So this
Okay.
already circumvents all that. Thank you a lot.
All right. Cool.
We were just talking about where to start with the summary, and I was telling them that we should really start by reviewing our notes of the work that we read and looking through our annotations and whatnot, and just kind of encouraging students to take more annotations while reading. Yeah.
So okay. Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
But we're gonna start looking at the works now with Samantha.
Okay. Great. I'm just trying to figure out how to leave.
Oh, sorry, I'm just been keeping you.
No, I mean, I don't see how I could leave your room without closing all the rooms.
I don't know how you can do it, but on the corner of my screen it says leave room, and that's the only thing I see alluding to leaving the room.
Gracias.
Of course. Sorry.
All right. Okay. Thanks. So Miguel, let me address you first, and then we will go to look at the Google Doc, right? So here's that section that you were talking about. If my cup holds but a pint and yours holds a quart, you wouldn't be mean not to let me have a little half measure full. 1 second. So Miguel, you bring up a good point because I think in order to be able to to summarize, you have to understand what the article is speaking about. And so this little section is about measurement, right? So a pint, right, is a measurement, right? A quart is a measurement, right? The next one up is a gallon, right? And this is, so 2 pints, 2 of these equals a quart, right? And you could buy a milk in a quart, you could buy milk in a gallon. You used to be able to buy milk in a pint, you can still buy it in a pint. And so she's saying, so if my cup won't hold but a pint, right? So only her cup, the cup that she's drinking from, could only hold a pint, right? And she says, and yours holds a quart, right? So yours has twice as much. And then she says, wouldn't you be mean not to let me have my little half measure full? Like, how wouldn't it be mean for you to prevent me from having this pint, at least this pint, particularly when you've got a quart and you've got twice as much, right? So, so let me go back to the class. So that's a little bit of the context, right? So I think it's you bring a good point, right? On the one of the main ideas, so that Sojourner is doing Sojourner Truth is doing in her essay, is kind of standing up, right? She's trying to show the equality of women to men, right? She's trying to show the importance of women to men. She goes in also, particularly, she's also a Black woman, so there's some of that in there as well, that she's noticing a difference. But one of the ideas that you got, which is perfect and right on point, is that she's talking about the worth of a woman. Like, what's the importance of a woman's worth, right? That's a Alicia Keys song. So that's one thing. So it's true, you have to understand what the vocabulary is. So as you're doing these annotations, right, for the other articles, and there's going to be 2 articles that you have not read, right? So it's important for you to be able to look at the vocabulary, at the understanding. And so I want you all, that'll be your assignment for next Tuesday, to make sure that to bring in your questions about the annotation before you submit them. That if you have any questions about the articles themselves, the language, the vocabulary, that you should be looking at them and reading them so that you can prepare to write the annotation, because it's important to do that. I don't know if was that helpful, Miguel?
Yeah, it's really helpful. And I mean, right now I'm just like talking for myself, right? Because I don't know, people who was born in this country, they probably know like plenty of words, but in my case it's different because I didn't learn them in the school, so it's new to me, and I have to try to put the puzzle together sometimes for me to be able to do my work, But thank you. Yeah, it was really, really helpful.
So, I mean, Miguel, it's important. I mean, I think you know it, but I think, you're aware of it, but that's important for you to know that it might take you an extra step, right? Because, I'm sure the way, I know that, in Mexico, it might be, like a litro, right? Instead of a quart, right? It's a different type of measurement when you go buy something, so I think to be able to first translate language, but also translate the kind of measurements as a whole, is a whole other thing. I mean, it happens the same thing with, with Europe and the United States, that we are still using, in terms of like measurements, there's the metric system that some people use and some people are aware of. And but context, I think that's what the beginning of the class, that's what how to get our minds to read, that's part of what it's talking about. That sometimes if you don't understand the context, of course you're not going to understand it, right? If you don't grow up with that knowledge, you don't grow up with that information, you may not it may take you a little more to understand it. It's not that it's impossible, it's just going to take an extra step, right? So let's look at the let me check in on the Google Doc. Okay, great. The first one, who was the first one in the article, Ain't I a Woman? Who's the first one? Because okay, I guess this is Aaliyah's here, right? This one is Aaliyah. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Let me share the screen so you can all see it at the same time. Sorry, I mean, if you're in the doc, you could see it, but if you're not, okay. So this is the Google Doc, right? And Aliyah is, I was asking who was this one here. So if somebody wants to identify themselves with
That's
this.
Umu.
Okay, Umu, that's your first one. Okay, great. So why don't we start with Umu since Umu was there. She goes, Umu writes in the article, Ain't I a Woman by Sojourner Truth. That's a it's good. Both of you have a nice beginning. Is about minimizing women and children. The woman was taking examples from men to let everybody know that women are as brave. Let me just, I'm not going to deal with the typos. Are as brave as a man too, because women can do most of the things that men does. She gave many examples, which is helping herself into carriages or over puddles. She could work as much, eat as much as a man. She has borne 13 children and seen them sold into slavery, right? And that's this last line, what is she saying about that she had 13 kids and then they were sold into slavery, right? She's saying that she's strong. Like who, like what mother, right, could survive and live beyond, seeing her children taken away from her? A very strong one, if you really to be able to be that strong, right? To be able to do that. So a lot of the good points here, if we look at Umu's, she's talking about the idea of minimizing women and children. She focuses more on women, but that's it. That the women, she takes examples from men to let them know that women are as brave, right? Too, because women can do most of the things that men can do, and she gives examples, right? And then Umu says, she gives examples about carrying herself into carriages, right? And over mud puddles, and she can work as much, eat as much as a man. She has even born 13 children, right? So she gives us example. This is a fairly good idea. We can work on some of the grammar and all that kind of stuff. And I know we're typing live, but we can work on that, together. I'm just going to make a little bit of space because the other classes, when I left your room and went into the other classes to give them this tool as well, so they could work on the tool. So here let me just double space it a little bit so we can use that. Let's look at Aliyah's. Aliyah, in the article, Ain't I a Woman by Sojourner Truth, the writer is expressing what she heard about women's rights and how they are supposed to be treated, right? In the article, she mentioned a lady being lifted into the carriage, but that did not happen for her ever. And the writer also mentioned Negro rights. Negroes didn't have most rights in their time, and women Negro, to be exact, had much less rights than white women and Negro men, right? So this is also here, this last line that she does is talking about the main point of the article, right? She's talking about the fact that women don't have the same rights as men, and that particularly even that Black women have even less rights than women, because at least if you want to talk about the right of courtesy, right, of being helped into a carriage, or having, a jacket thrown so they wouldn't walk into a puddle of mud, that at very least those women are treated with those courtesies, but that she as a Black woman is not. The combination of these two that we've seen are like good examples because they include the main point, right? Which is really talking about here where Aliyah clearly says that she's talking about the women's rights and how they're supposed to be treated, right? Because that's two different things, like rights, right? And how they're supposed to be treated. And that's the idea of is it her right to be helped into a carriage? No, but that's a courtesy, right? It's a courtesy that, and this is society saying women should be treated with this kind of respect, that she is not receiving that kind of respect, right? As a woman, and then she's also not being, as a Black woman, and then she's also not being treated equal when she can work as hard and eat as much and do all the things that a man can do. And she even says, she goes further about with this last line here that I mentioned, that about her having born the babies. And I'm just going to take away the gray so we can see that. Having born the babies, that we can see how that works in there. We're having the benefit of watching some of your other classmates, so we can take a peek to see what Samantha is doing, and let me make it bigger. right? In the speech on a woman by Sojourner Truth from May 29th, she puts a date. She speaks on the rights for men and women equality. Sojourner states, look at me, look at my arms. I have plowed and planted and gathered the barns. No man can lead me. When it stands from this, yes, okay. This sentence is how she compared how she works just as hard as a man, most of the times even harder, yet doesn't have equal rights as a man or even a white woman for that matter. She also stresses how men say women should be helped into carriages, lift over ditches, and have the best places everywhere. However, she is a woman and she does not have this treatment either. Women are also not equal to men in my opinion because, okay, so what the work they're doing with Samantha is really an important piece because it's about being able to summarize, but you're not commenting, right? You're not doing your own personal commenting on what on what you understand. You don't have to say that because you're summarizing. It's what you're summarizing, right? And here, this is again her giving her opinion, which in summaries we don't. We have to stick to the speech. Let's look at one of the things Samantha does in her piece is that she does a quote right here. Look at me, look at my arms, I have plowed, right? And then she explains this sentence is how she compared how she works just as hard as a man. So something you can do in summary is use a quote and then explain the quote, right? Here, and it doesn't have to be in that order, right? Because here, Umu starts talking about what the quote is, and then she goes into the quote afterward. So let's look at this. So while we're here, and let's look at Umu's thing, because sometimes I see this. So the idea of woman, right, means one woman, and the plural is women, right? So if she's doing the plural, she would say women there. And let me just go back here a second. Let me go back, right, and go into suggesting, right? We're going to fix that here. And then the women was taking examples from men to let everybody know that women are brave, which we know that, right? With that particular, that last one, as men. 2, because women can do most of the things, right, that men can, right, or do. It's giving us do, right? She gave many examples, which is helping. She gave many examples, which is helping herself into carriages or over mud puddles. She could work as hard as much as a man have borne. Okay, great. I'm just going to fix this here. Normally when you have a quote, the period goes inside. Right. And Aaliyah's we commented on it. She meant to leave women, Negro men to be exact, had much less rights than a white woman and a Negro man. This is like a pretty decent summary. It looks like Jalon and Adrian does good stuff too. So in Sojourner Truth, powerful speech in a woman, Truth is acknowledging that change is in the works. Women in the North are fighting for equal rights while Black people, whoops. Truth talks about how white men, right, for the North, while Black people in the South are also fighting for their rights. Truth talks about how white men believe that women should be treated gently by helping them, being helped into carriages and lifted over ditches. However, that is not the life Truth has ever known as a woman. As a woman of color, Truth has had to work the fields and bear lashings just as a man. Truth challenges white men by asking them, just because they think they are more intellectual than women and Black people, what does that have to do with equal rights, right? Again, this brings up more points of her comparison in there. So I think one of the things I want us to look at, particularly with the first two, is that they kind of go right to the point, right? They are concise. And there are other points inside of the article, and we will look at that. I think when we come back into the big group, it's 2 o'clock. We're going to keep going. into the big group, we'll look at it. There's other things that she does comparison. She uses religion, right? That the idea sometimes religion is used to be like righteous, like this is the correct thing. And then she says, she challenges even the ideas of religion. So she's challenging a lot of the things that her society is seeing with women, or she's expressing what her experience of them is. She goes, if things are supposed to be this way, why are they not that way for me? And when you really think of things, right, what does this have to do with my right as a human being, as a person in the world, and as a person in this country? Shouldn't I be entitled to the same kinds of rights and things that we need to have? Let me just check this chat here. Okay, they're doing this. Okay, that's just us doing our thing. Okay. Does anybody else want to add? You can just put it, you can add one down here at the below. Someone else wants to add there, so we can, make space here. You can slip it in between so that we could be able to see. Whoops, let me just get rid of that. All right, yeah, I'll put the doc here. Let me put it again in the chat. No, I didn't see it. Here we go. Just adding the document to the chat because I think one more class member wants to participate. See Jolan's here. All right, so we could look at Jalan's. When I read this memorable speech, and I woman, I thought that the reader, Sojourner Truth, challenged society's view of African Americans and women by explaining how not only Black people are equal in priority as white women, but also showed that Black women are just as important and hardworking than white women, right? She said, while white women were always treated as royal people and men should always try to manipulate them and treat them spoiled, Black women, like their male counterparts, do some hard labor and handle so much abuse. It's just like she said in the speech. Sojourner Truth said, nobody ever helps me into carriages or over puddles or any place. And ain't I a woman? And Truth continues stating, look at me, look at my arm. I've plowed and planted and gathered. And then the Truth ends her statement, I could work as much and eat as much as a man. When I get it, and the bear the lash as well, and ain't I a woman, right? This one, you can see Jalan wrote a lot of the points. If you think of this example, there's like, if you're writing 5 to 7 sentences, this kind of encapsulates it. One of the things that Jalan did was kind of state the point here, right? And then states a point again, and then goes into an example from the text, right? And then does the same thing, using the example of the text to illustrate their points. Let's see if Nahom was able to put theirs up. Let me just check out. Yeah, you can do it. You can do it in the doc after class. I mean, Nahom could do it after class, of course. I mean, everyone can. Okay, great. Yeah, you can do it after class. But the point of this doc here is so that we have an opportunity to see what each other is making, so you can compare what you wrote to other folks. You'll have access to this. You can keep it. Keep this in the if you keep the copy of this, what I'll do is I'll also, when I in the Annotated Bibliography folder, I'll put a link to this chat so we can look back to see what people wrote. And this will be the beginning of how we do this. Let me just come back to the class, see if there's no one else that wants to upload theirs. So I'm hoping for those of you who were, as Miguel said, he was thinking about it in his head. Or some of you have written it. Raylene said she was good, and Julissa said she was good. That you can look at what you wrote and look at what was in the chat and maybe compare. And you have access to that. You know, now you have access. If you copy the link, I'll put the link again in the regular chat for everybody. This is the Google Doc, so you can put that link in the, you know, you can hold on to that link. I'm going to put it in the document as well, so you can take a look and see, you know, examples of strong ones. Some that were pretty thorough. That we have an example of some other work that we could do. You know, other aspects of it, and so in a moment I'm going to pop into the breakout room and then bring them all back in class together. Let me actually write to them and let them know. Broadcast message to all. Okay, so I'm just going to let them know, like, in 2 minutes, we'll bring everybody together. We'll see how much we got done. And hopefully we'll be in a stronger place with the bibliography. And then I'm going to talk about, we'll look at Sojourner Truth's Ain't a Woman Together, and then we'll do the final part of the annotated bibliography. So in case any of you wanted to get started, you can get started on it. And you would have basically all the elements that you need. Again, it's not due, we will meet next week on Tuesday, but it won't be due next Tuesday. It'll be due on the Thursday after. So if you have any questions, you have any ideas, you have any thoughts, you can bring them to class and we can work on them together. So let's see how. All right, cool. I'm gonna close the rooms and bring your other classmates that were working with Victor into the room. I'm just giving it, just takes a few seconds to bring everybody back in. But this is good. I mean, for us, you know, a couple of weeks ago, we did some workshopping of something else, and I thought it would be good for us to do this live together. And let me just hold my thought until everybody's back. Just waiting for your classmates to return. David. Welcome back, David. Everybody's back, right? Yes, everybody's back. Cool. All right. So I hope that was helpful. I mean, it was helpful for me to see what some of you were writing. It was great that we could, even though we weren't in the breakout room or the breakout room folks weren't with us, they can kind of see some of the work that was happening. That link will stay live, and I'll add it to the assignment, and we can and we can, we can continue working on that. So what I think I was, we've been going straight through, but there was almost a little bit of a break when you were writing, not really a break because I was working and you were working. But I think what we could do is I could spend another like 25 minutes, and then we can pause and stop. But I wanted to do a couple things with all of us together. So thanks for working live, those of you who are putting your work up on the Google Sheet, those of you who were thinking about it, and those of you who worked on your own. I mean, the idea of this is giving you an opportunity to not only say, let's talk about summary, but to put the theory into practice. And it's not just the first time because you've had other opportunities to summarize, but I wanted us to be able to do it together, for us to do it live, because sometimes it is that moment. I said when we broke into breakout groups, something very important that David offered to the class is sometimes us having that moment where we have, find it challenging to begin, right? So it's important to find that beginning place. And so many of the classmates gave good examples of how to begin it, and that main ideas. One of the things that yes, Victor, I'm gonna let you share some more about what was going on in your room. We could, as you can tell, we could see some of the stuff that was happening in the Google Doc, and but certainly I'm going to invite you to share some of those comments with the larger class. But yeah, I think it was an opportunity for us to be able to work live and to do things live. And sometimes some of the opportunities of the situation that you find yourself in when you're sitting down, getting ready to write your summary or your essay, or in this case, your annotated bibliography, some of the things that you encounter as writers and as thinkers. And so, so it's good for us to be able to do this activity together. And I thank you for your participation and for, what you gave. So Victor, would you like to share, a couple of thoughts from your group?
Yeah, so we kind of started off by discussing how we begin a summary, and a lot of the students said they start with, introducing the title, the author's name, and then trying their best to hit the main idea, or describe the main idea in their own words. I suggested that before we even start the writing process, we go back to the reading, and that we review our notes, and that we make sure that the first time we read, or even the second time we read, whenever it is, that while we are reading, we're consciously looking for the main idea. And every time we highlight it, we write on the margin in our own words what the main idea is, right? What we think the main idea is. We ask questions of the text. Maybe, like, what about X is this text trying to expose, or whatever, right? And while doing that, one, we have already material that we can use to start our summary. And then with two, we can have questions that we have questions that we ask in the classroom that the professor can answer, right? Maybe you don't know what a particular word means, or a reference to maybe the Civil War or something. You have those questions to ask in the class. So annotations and, reading carefully is a very big step. I know it's difficult to find time for that because we have prior, duties and stuff, but trust me, if you spend an extra 20 minutes just taking notes, these things will fly by easier. And then we also discussed how we introduce an article and, start with the summary and everything. I recommended to the students that we rely less on quotes, especially big quotes, and that we utilize our paraphrasing skills more. And I told them, like, a paraphrase is similar to a quote, where it's evidence. We're providing, almost like a direct quote from the reading. But what we're doing is we're giving credit to the author. We're saying truth states or truth claims, comma, quotation marks, etc. No quotation marks. But instead, we reword her phrase, right? And we do it to the best of our ability to capture exactly what she is saying. Right? So instead of using a quote, we're instead giving our own explanation or our own rewording of the author's original words. And the way we do that, and the reason why we do that is just to provide, is to demonstrate how the author supports their main idea. So that was it. We talked about, annotations and paraphrasing.
Those are good things. I think one of the important things I want to take from what you're saying in the use of quotation is because I think the use of quotation, I know David is having trouble. He's emailing me. He's getting bumped out. But I think the important thing about that is that I'm gonna say that it's okay to use quotation, but I think the thing to be aware of is that not to have quotations take over the space. Right. The idea is that the idea of paraphrasing is that you're able to not only repeat, which is what a quote does, but you're able to process, right? To be able to interpret. So I think that's one of the things that would be good for the bigger group to take from it. And I think one of the things that we also experience is what you were talking about, which is in a way, why I did, when I crafted your assignment, I used 3 articles that you were familiar with, right? 3 articles you had written about. And we did it with this one, which is one that is the shortest and the one that for here in class. So that we could see that even though on the one hand, the time it may take for you to craft the assignment. So in our group, one of the things that came up was one of the students didn't understand the context of measurement, right? And so that's what we're talking about, the times in terms of, like, as you were saying, making a reference to the Civil War or something, that it's a question that you can either look up, and if you can't find it, and you come to class and you can ask me or your classmates, because sometimes that knowledge doesn't only live with me, it lives with all of you. And so some of you may know something as well that you can contribute. So those are important things to take in and to consider. And in our group, we also talked about that. So part of your, it's not your official homework, but your unofficial homework or your process should be definitely read these articles, make sure you know them. And then there's going to be 2 articles that you're going to be reading for the first time, perhaps, and that you read those as well. And you can bring questions the next time we meet, or you may have to look up something. I can tell you the article on the view of immigrants is talking about, it was written in 2018, and it was written at a time when there was a lot of images in the media about the cages and the children being separated from their parents at the border and stuff like that. And there is, again, remember, which is why I do Danger of a Single Story, Chimamanda's, kind of advice to us when you're thinking of the single story, that if there's one story that's being thrown at you from media, from leaders, that there's got to be more to that story than just that one story. So that article talks a lot about those things. And so you may have more of experience with that because it's a more current article and it's something you're living with, right? From day to day. And there's something that it's not a time in history that we're hearing about. It's going to be a time in history that we are living, right? The other essay is the one that, clearly that I wrote, but it's a very short essay as well. And that's really me processing this idea, this intersection of queerness and Latinidad and being Latino, and kind of like what's happening in the world that we live in, and particularly talking about the Orlando Pulse murder as part of the catalyst for that essay, and in the impact that had on me as an individual. So so in terms of context, in terms of history, in terms of information, when you're reading the articles, you should be thinking about that. That's How to Get Our Minds to Read was specifically talking about that. Was specifically talking about the amount of education that we bring to a knowledge that we bring, general knowledge that we bring, and sometimes that general knowledge is current events, et cetera, to understanding in the article. The thing I want to say, and I see your hand, Victor, I'm gonna pass the baton to you in a second. So the thing I want to say is that when you're summarizing, though, remember that you're not summarizing your ideas or your impressions or your experiences. You're reading text and you're summarizing what is happening inside of the text. Victor.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a tip to the students. We all have access to Google Docs and we all download PDFs. So when you do download a PDF, download it into Google Docs, and then those annotations I was speaking about, you can just highlight with your mouse, click comment, and put the comments on the side. I know this sounds like super like no-brainer, but that's going to really help everybody. Just, type your thoughts out in the corner, and you can always use those notes for later.
So I'm gonna just ask you if you need to use the bathroom or do that, please do it. But I think we can it's 2:23. I think we can, in a sense, power through for another 10 or 15 minutes, and then I think we could be done for today. So I think all of this stuff is great. I hope you feel armed and ready to continue doing your summaries. I wanted to just quickly and say that really thanks for a lot of the points that you made and the summaries that were there, because you were all hitting a lot of the main points and the important things about it. So I'm just going to do a quick, let's just do a quick look at this particular essay again, right? I'm sharing it here. She says, well, children, there's so much racket that there will be something out of kilter. I think twixt the Negroes of the South and the women of the North, all talking about rights. The white men will be in a fix pretty soon. But what's all this here talking about, right? So she's talking about the talking here, this idea of talking about rights. And we know about the North and the South. There was a division with the idea of slavery, and that the North was ultimately came around and was trying to abolish it, and the South wanted to keep it, right? And so all this talk about rights, right? So that's her setting the context. Talking about rights, she's speaking specifically that the Negroes of the South and the women in the North, right? She's making in terms of, she's letting us know about gender and et cetera. Then she goes through her examples. That man over there says that women need to be helped into carriages, right? So most of you hit this point, right? Nobody that they're saying the idea of the way in which white women should be treated, the level of respect that women should be treated, right? It says women, but then she says, nobody's ever helped me into carriages over mud puddles or given me any best place, right? So she's showing a difference between, where they're saying women, but she's saying they really mean white women, and that she's not having that. She goes, and ain't I a woman, right? If nobody's ever done that, and ain't I a woman? Look at me, look at my arm. I have plowed and planted, and many of you gave this, gathered into barns. No man could heed me, right? So like head me rather. So she's like, an ain't I a woman? So she's like, I could do as much as a man. I could work as much and eat as much as a man. And when I could get it and bear the lash as well, right? So I can work as hard, eat as hard, and take a lot of punishment. And ain't I a woman, right? And I am a woman. She goes, I've borne 13 children. One of you used this in your example, sold up to slavery, and cried out with my mother's grief, but none but Jesus heard me, and ain't I a woman, right? So she's saying here, again, how she's able to persevere and the amount of strength that she has. And she goes, and am I a woman? So isn't that a woman? So therefore women must be strong, right? Then she talk about this thing in the head, right? She calls it intellect. She goes, that's it. What does that have to do with the women's rights or Negroes' rights? Right? She's saying because somebody's smarter or not exactly, right? And then it goes into the quote here. I'm just going through it quickly here. So she's saying, if my cup only has a pint, right? And a pint, we just were talking in class, is 2 pints equal a quart. She goes, and yours has a quart. Wouldn't you be mean not to at least let me have my half measure full, like let me have my pint, right? For you to try to keep me from having that pint, right? The very least. She goes, and the man says women have as much as right as men because Christ was a woman. So she goes into religion and she challenges the idea of religion, right? And men. And then she says the first woman God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down. Talking about Eve. These women together should be able to turn it back, get it right side up, right? And now he's asking us to do it, and the men better let them oblige for hearing me. So what I was trying to do, I did quickly. Is it's also one of the things you can do when you're reading your essays is read it section by section, read it piece by piece to see what are the main points in the different paragraphs or in the different sections. So as you're formulating it, early in the class, Samantha used the word outline, and that would be outlining. Victor's also giving us, so we can take these things and put them in a Google Doc, take a PDF, and then you're able to write comments on it. So as you're reading them, you can say, this is about this is about that. And that might be another path into the different articles and into the different essays. So as you're understanding them, sometimes looking at them, when you look at this big whole essay, you're like, what is this about? But if you begin with the tips we said today, looking at the opening, looking at the closing, and then going through it paragraph by paragraph, section by section, it'll hopefully begin unlocking. I do that with poetry. You have to be very slow when you read poetry. That's for 111, not for now, but just so you know. But the activity of going bit by bit is important, okay? There's one last piece about the annotated bibliography, and we can pick up on it next time because, you know, I also feel an overload of information with all of you, but I'm gonna touch on it. So here we go. The assignment, so this will be, I fixed it. And so I'll put the fixed version of it, the language. And so here's the annotated bibliography thing that I was reviewing at the beginning of class. And we talked about the paper format, but the last bit of formatting is how to format the sources in the annotated bibliography. So this link, which is not live, I'm going to make it live before I upload it, is the one that we need for this class. We actually have a talk to teachers was a speech, but it comes from a book. Sojourners was a speech, but we have the annotation for that. I mean, the bibliography information, the Carol Anderson's White Rage comes from an anthology. And the other one is an essay that comes from an anthology. One is an article that comes from a newspaper. So the kind of formatting that they will all have in the annotated bibliography will be similar. And I'm gonna copy this and paste it. And so we can take a look at this here. I think I have it open, but. Okay. So the works cited page, in this case, we're doing the bibliographies, is it? There's an order in which you put the information, right? And it's usually the author, the title of the piece, the title of the container. They keep saying container, which is like let's just use the example of a magazine and the magazine article. So the title will be the title of the article. The title of the container is the magazine article is contained inside of the magazine. And then if there's other contributors like an editor or something, that would come here. If it was a periodical, the version of the edition, the number, the volume. So it's giving you the order of all of these things. This is the kind of general one with all the information, but this is what it looks like for a magazine. So for the Washington Post one, you put the author or the authors, right? You would have the title of the article. You'd have the title of the periodical or the newspaper, the Washington Post, the day, the month, the year, and the amount of pages, right? And so the way it would look like this. Here for type, the name of the art, here's the author, right? Here's the title, right? And you see it's in quotation marks. Here's the name of it, of the magazine or the container, just time, and it's italicized. And then the day, the month, the year, and the pages, and then there's a period. So if you notice this too, that the first line is flushed left to the margin, and then the one underneath it is indented. That's called a hanging indent, right? That means instead of indenting the first line, you indent the second line and the lines that go below that one piece. Here's another example with the same kind of format. The difference here is that Good Housekeeping does not have a day of the week. It only has a month and a year, right? This one has it, right? So if it doesn't have it, you don't include it, but, right? Same thing if there was no author for the article, and you just do the title, you will begin with just the title of the article. So it does the same thing. It shows you the article in the newspaper, right? Which is one of the, actually, ironically, it's the Washington Post. So that's the name of the author, the title of the article, and it's really this, following this format, okay? It says it generically here, right? But then you see how it is in practice here, right? I'm trying to see if they give us an example. This is a review, which is different. An editorial letter, an article, a scholarly journal. Okay, so one thing it doesn't tell you is that normally you just put first name, last name, last name, first name for the, if there's one author. If there's more than one, you would have last name, first name of the first person, and then you write and then the first name, last name of the second person. So for instance, I know from our assignment that at least this article from the Washington Post, I want to copy this, and I'm going to maybe even go into that Google chat for a minute, since that's kind of like a working document here in the class. That's not it. That's not it. That's it. So I'm just going to create a little space down here. I'm going to go out of editing, suggesting go into editing mode. See what so I'm going to put paste. Right? So if we follow the format, right? If we look here, right? The format is saying like article in the newspaper. You just go up here, like author or authors, title of the article. So if I go here, the authors are who? Right? Emily Farris and Heather Silverman. So since Farris is alphabetically first, I'm going to start writing my annotation. How it's going to go. So it's going to go Farris, Emily, because it's first name, last name, and Heather Silver Mohammed, right? And then we put a period, right? I only know that because it shows me this here, right? It shows me authors and it tells me period, right? And then it says quotations, title of the article, and the title of the periodical in italics. So I'm going to go back here. So title of the article is here and it's already in quotes. Right, put a space. And let me look at the formatting. What I had to put after the title, I put a period, right? See inside the quote, and then it's going to be the title of the periodical and a comma. All right, so I'm going to go back here. So it's saying I put a period here. And the title of the thing is Washington Post, and then it says a comma, right? And I have to italicize it. I said that in the instructions. It showed me the title of the container, right, of the magazine or the newspaper. Goes in quotes. Then let me go back here. What's next? The day, the month, the year. Okay, so let me see. Here it is. I have the article open. So this is the actual article. So let me look. The day, the month, and the year. Here it is. 27 June 2018. So let me go back to my annotation. And it's like 27 June 2018. Right. And I'm going to show you an extra step. So this is online, right? So this may not have the page numbers on it, or it doesn't have the page numbers on it. If we could look at the, if there was a way to look at the original one, we could do that. But if it doesn't have the page numbers, and either way, if it comes from an online source, you have to include the link. And so I'm going to go back here. Let me go back here to look for punctuation. So it's, and they're asking you to abbreviate the month. And then there's a comma. So we'll do that. You won't take, oh, June doesn't get abbreviated. Comma, and then I'm going to put the link. So I'm going to look at this to make sure that my fonts are all the same. I'm going to use Times Roman, right? And then remember that format that this said, a hanging indent, that this is on the left margin, and then the lines underneath it are indented. So I have to go back here. So in Google Docs that I'm in, there's a way to do that automatically, right? So it's formatting, right? Align and indent. and indentation options, and then hanging indent, right? So I'm going to apply it, and it does it automatically for me, right? This is doing this weird thing because of the link. It keeps the link intact, right? So this automatically created the hanging indent. Let me go back, right? So it's in formatting here, right? If you're working in Word, I'm going to copy the same information. This is a Word. Let me open a blank document. And I'm going to put it into Word, right? And let me just change the font so it's all the same, Times Roman. And then it's 12 point. And then in Word, you could do the same thing, but in this one you have to do paragraph. Excuse me. Let me see, you could do in paragraph, right? And then indentation gives you hanging, right? It's special. And then it does it automatically for you. Word. And then of course you would, in the annotated bibliography, you double space everything. So in paragraph, you would double space. Okay, so that's what it looked like. And then underneath it, you're gonna write your summary, and you're gonna like the summary of this article is talking. I'm just making it up. So the second part, the annotation, right? You think it's repeating that, so I have to fix it, right? Because there isn't with this, with the paragraph with this summary, it does not have a hanging intent, right? That is the paragraph follows the usual format, which would mean an indentation there, okay? And then here, so if you had your second entry that comes after this, goes here, right? This would be a hanging indent, so you would fix that indentation. Right? And so on. If you had a third one, you'll have 5 at least would look right? And this would be a hanging indent. This is the third one. Right, and then this underneath it would go like that. Right, when you do your annotated bibliography, you would also put it with your name, right? Let me just think of somebody in the class. Date. The title, just you can borrow the title from the topic. Right. Just fixing all formatting. This is the title. The titles are centered. Let me take off the period from the title. No space there. And then you would do the insert. I mean, we've done this. I'm just doing this so you can see it live. This would be, we would fix it so that the font is the same. Right, and so this is how it would look. And if you had more, you would have 5 of them. So when you submit your paper, this, I can tell the spacing is a little weird because, yep, 1 second. I'll get to you, Victor, in a second. So when you submit your papers, you should have this formatting. You should have a title to it. Go right into your annotations. Make sure the page number is there, and that's the basic formatting. Victor.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind the students that, you know, everyone has access to the videos on Blackboard, and I would highly recommend that when you're doing your format and your bibliographies and whatnot, you go back and you re-watch this section of the lecture, okay? And just, you know, it takes a lot of time. It's very annoying. It gets easier as you do this because you will always need to format your papers in college. But, you know, sit down and re-watch that segment.
Yes, definitely you can do that. I mean, what some of the times we have to look as well. At one point, the English department, and this is something we were doing with the Writing Center, we were doing how-to videos so that we could, so that students would have access to them. So I don't know that ever, you know, the Writing Center ever had those, but certainly that's part of the reason why I record them. I mean, because in case sometimes if you miss class, but also sometimes you're like sitting in class and the professor's doing it, and sometimes you understand it, and then you kind of go away, and then you sit down to do it, and you're like, wait, what the heck did he do? So you can definitely, as Victor is reminding us, go back. And I've been, you know, trying to make a point of always getting the, okay. Yeah, check and see if they ever got made so that you can go back and see the lesson, okay? And I know I sent an email that as of this point, all the lessons are there. And today I'll do that. Today I'll say review, I'll give it a title like review of summary, class exercise and summary, and review of the annotated bibliography and formatting. So that when you look at the class in the course content in the class folders, you kind of have, you know, it'll jog your memory about what the class is about. Okay, so I know that was quick. I'm gonna chill. I'm gonna stay here. I'm gonna ask questions, but if people are okay, we did a lot today. But I think we have, at this moment, we have another opportunity to be together next Tuesday to answer any final questions about the annotated bibliography. But if any of you feel like want to do your drafts, I encourage you to do that. At the very least, if you don't start it, I encourage you to read all of the articles, particularly the ones that you that you don't know, and even the ones you know, because we did one that we knew today and that was short. And so it's important for you to be able to pop into the other. Okay, cool. Yeah, so no, one of the things I'm going to do right when I get off of the class here is I'm going to put everything in a folder that's called Annotated Bibliography that will include the handout on annotated bibliographies with the links to the formatting, that will include the actual assignment, that would include the 5 articles, or links to the PDF of the 5 articles. And I'm going to also throw in the how to summary in it. And I'm going to look in also the link that Victor offered us on the tips. So all of that will be in the file folder so that you can all begin. And then I'll open up, turn it in to do it. Let me just, let me think a minute. Why don't we leave it alone? I'm not going to use the turn it in because it'd be another step. So that we'll just upload it to the it'll be in the discussions page, right? So all of this will be open up a link in discussions. It just says annotated bibliography, and you should upload it like the way you've been uploading all semester onto that. So in the course content will be the folder of the annotated bibliography with all the instructions and all the handouts and the articles. And then in the discussions will be a discussion thread so that you can actually upload the bibliography once you're done. All right, and that should be pretty much it. All right, any questions or thoughts? Right on. Okay, I'll stay here for a little bit because we have class till we have another 25 minutes, so we could be in class. We also did not have an official break, so I want to be mindful of that. And I know some of you might be, I see some of you in cars, and yeah, that's yes, that is your final, that's that's the last assignment, not your final exam. That's separate. Your final exam, that's what we'll be again next week, and the last week we'll be preparing for the final exam. The finals week is December 15th through the 21st. And for your class, since you brought up you said the word final, you whispered it in the chat. The final exam is basically an essay. So you will be reading articles, and I'm going to open that up too. So you'll see it next week. You'll have that up. Right now, we'll just focus on the annotated bibliography. But next week we'll begin preparing for the final exam, and all it is really us reading essays, and so that you become familiar with it. And then on the 15th at midnight, the prompt gets uploaded to the site, and you have until the 15th at midnight till the 21st at midnight to write your essay and upload it. And that one, I'm going to let you know that that one cannot, some of you have handed assignments in late. For the final, you cannot hand it in late. Once midnight strikes on December 21st, that's it. So and that one, my hesitation with I wanted to, because that one you have to turn it in. And so I'll just do an instruction on how to do something on Tenor, and then we can do a test. And maybe next week, if some of you have not done it, we'll flip it and we'll give you the option to do it that way. But don't worry about Turnitin. I'll make sure you know how to use Turnitin before the final exam. Okay. All right. Yeah, so this is your last. There's no more essays to write except for the final exam, and there's no more summaries or anything except the annotated bibliography to complete. And so we're almost coming in for a landing with the activity that we have to do in this class. So thanks to everybody, and thanks today for your participation, and always thanks to Victor for his, for all the work that Victor does when Victor's with us. So yeah. Okay, I'm going to be here if you have questions. If not, have a great afternoon. Have an incredible Thanksgiving if you celebrate Thanksgiving. If you don't, then hopefully that's a day off for you all, and you can find some time to rest and find some time to catch up or catch your breath. All right, take care, and I'll be here for questions. If not, have a great afternoon.
Professor, I have a question.
Sure.
Well, I have two questions. So the what you just show us, what is the name? It's called the biography of what?
What do you mean?
Oh, what you were showing us how to do the format.
Oh, yeah.
What is the name of the homework? The biography of what?
Annotated bibliography.
Oh, annotated. You're gonna post it on Blackboard, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna post the handout that we went over today. I'm gonna post the assignment. I'm gonna post what I did is live, but I'm gonna post a sample of what one final one looks like, so you can see that. So you'll have that. I'm gonna put the handout summary in there. I'm gonna put the tips that Victor shared with us. So all of that will be self-contained in a folder. And if you look at it today and you have questions tomorrow, or you can certainly email me tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm working, all day tomorrow. I tell you, I will not be working on Thursday, but I'll probably open my email on Friday again.
When is gonna be due?
Due on Thursday, December 2nd. So it's gonna be due a week from Thursday.
Okay, perfect. And tonight, we still have do one assignment, right? Like
Yes.
It's an essay, right?
Yeah, on Sojourner Truth and James Baldwin.
Perfect. Yeah, I just wanted to confirm that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
All right, Miguel.
Have a good day.
All right, you too. Take care. Let me check the chat to see if anybody's chatting to me. Ciao, have a Thanksgiving. See ya. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Professor?
Yes.
I'm doing an essay on lecture. It's due to 24th. So the essay is due tonight. I'm gonna be a little late on that one, but was you able to access all my work I've been handing in?
Yes, I did look at them, and I'm in the middle of grading this. I tell you, I was working backwards. I did the most recent, so I got to grade tonight's essay. I'm going to start grading that over the weekend, but I'm trying to finish the last two assignments. But before I do anybody else's work, I'm going to catch up with you in particular, because we've had trouble getting your having access to your articles, but I have gotten access. So I'm gonna grade all of yours first.
Okay, the Sojourner Truth one we submitted.
Say it again.
Was that the Sojourner Truth one, the one we submitted a week ago, 2 weeks ago? Was that supposed to be different from what we did today, or that was the same?
Which one did you do 2 weeks ago? I'm trying to remember.
The Sojourner Truth, the one we was working on today.
Yeah, let me just go to. Thank you. Victor's Happy Indigenous People Day. Yes, block with tutors. Okay, yes, book with tutors. Okay, hold on a second. Let me just go to Blackboard. Right, you mean the assignment is due tonight? David?
Yeah. Huh?
Yeah, the assignment is due tonight, right, is different, right?
No, not the one that's due tonight. I know the one that's due tonight. It's two articles in one essay. Not that one. The Sojourner Truth one. You seen the essay we was working on today when you separated us from class?
Yes.
Was that supposed to be the same one that we had for homework? Or that was something totally different?
Yeah, when you originally read the Sojourner Truth one, the thing was that some people were good at it and some people were not. So, but the Sojourner Truth summary is one that you need to do for the annotated bibliography. Is that answering your question?
Somewhat. So I was supposed to write a whole other summary today, right? About the same article, right?
Yes. No, I mean, if you feel like the one you did was a good one, right, then this is an opportunity to work on that one. Yes.
I still just work on the one I wrote, I handed in already. Did you get to go through that one?
Let's see with hold on a second. Yeah, so no, I haven't seen yours, so I have to take a look at it. That's one of the ones I haven't seen. I saw the other classmates, so but not yours. So you should wait for my comment before you move forward with that particular one. Is that what your question is?
I'm sorry, I was talking with the mic muted. What you said?
So yeah, you should wait for my comment because I didn't have access.
Okay. So no, but my question was, so the when you separated us to go to the room, that's what we was working on that one, right?
Yes.
Okay, because I started to write it over, but then as I'm writing it over, I noticed that I wrote saying about the similar thing about that. That's why I was wondering if you didn't go through it yet. But so I did do that one. The ones for today, that's due today. I'm gonna be like a day, maybe a day or two late with it, because I'm gonna start it tonight after I finish.
All right. Well,
your one.
as soon as you can.
And another question. I'm sorry. The VIP one and the what's the other one I just handed in? The Google essay. Are they long enough?
Say it again.
The VIP one and the Google essay. Are they long enough, or should I add more?
You have to see, what did I say?
You didn't say nothing on them yet.
Let me see.
I want like full credit on them, so if I gotta do a little long, I would.
Oh wait, so David, the Google one you just put in.
Yeah, I emailed you about it, telling you I just put it in, and if you could go over it real quick so I could submit it before the 22nd, but I guess you didn't get that email in time.
All right, yeah, I have to look at it. I'm just looking.
Okay, so I'll wait for your comments on that.
Yes. Yeah, I'm going to work on your stuff because I know we had trouble getting into your stuff, so I'll work on yours first.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
I'll email you anything, but you don't write me back.
I'm sorry, but I think I think I either open the thing is when you write me, I click it and if I can open it, I feel like I'm good.
What do you mean?
Like if I can open it, then I can read it and I'll be able to grade it.